Who's a celebrity you like, but then learned about something they did and disliked them immediately? I tend to be pretty good at separating the art from the artist. Creative minds are chaotic. That's why they're able to think beyond the norms that we used to. I wouldn't excuse the behavior of someone who has done unspeakable things, like Steven Tyler, but I'm not too surprised when I learn who they are behind the scenes. So yeah, maybe I'd think twice about going to a show or buying merch. A good song is a good song though. So when it comes on, I just have to forget about the artist's personal lives and take the song for what it is. I grew up absolutely enthralled by David Eddings's fantasy books. I bought and read through every single one, even the Riven Codex, which is basically just a history textbook for his fantasy world. Yet, I was the kid who could devour an entire fantasy encyclopedia in a day, yet couldn't get through the Scarlet Letter in a month. I recently learned that both he and his wife were child abusers, locking their children in cages, beating them, starving them. Really soured any nostalgia I felt for those books. I was a huge fan of Hunter S. Thompson, author of Fear, Loathing in Las Vegas, and read all his books. He wrote a lot about sports and politics, not just drugs, and it was all very readable. But I was such a fan that I read a book about him with a lot of interviews with friends and family. He physically abused multiple women and, by the time he killed himself, spent a lot of his time being an intolerable asshole to everyone. It made it hard to still think he was cool. Taylor Swift was a huge fan. I still have tickets for her tour this year, which I don't want to sell because it's my first ever concert experience and it was a gift. Damn. That woman's contribution to pollution is on the same level as microplastics. Love her music, especially her romance songs, as I find them quite cute. Just wish she wasn't the literal devil when it comes to climate change. I convinced myself to see past Kanye West's harassment abuse, really of Kim Kardashian, so that I could continue to enjoy his music. Once Kanye started making comments praising Hitler, I just couldn't justify it anymore. Sometimes I do miss listening to his music, but then I think about my family who were imprisoned in Nazi camps for years, and then I don't feel bad anymore. This is recent, but I learned about John Hum hazing a dude in his frat pack in college. I messed up one word in the pledge, and Hum essentially tortures the dude for hours. Some messed up stuff. The guy is left with long-term injuries from it. Hum avoids the topic, but if he does mention it, he says it's a bummer it happened. Kelsey Grammer, when I found out he's a staunch Trump supporter, hat with how bad the G.W. Bush years were. But when he came out as unapologetically pro-Trump, I was done with him and his entire body of work, and now I'm immediately turned off anyone who works with him. Rachel Ray. I used to love her 30-minute meals show on Food Network and had a crush on her. Then she started shilling for all sorts of crap on TV like dog food commercials and Dunkin' Donuts. And I learned that in real life she is a really nasty person. It broke my heart and now I don't bother watching anything she does. Charlie Chaplin. I'm a senior sort of chap. And as a child I loved all the old black and white comedies, Buster Keaton, Laurel and Hardy, Chaplin, etc. Then I read a biography of Chaplin, and another, as I thought the first was a hatchet job. It wasn't. He was a true perv and nonce, who treated his family utterly vilely. Shakira I'd if she counts as a celebrity. Ever since Pete cheated in her and she started to talk shit about him and made all those stupid songs, I lost all respect for her. Especially since she cheated on her previous boyfriend with Pete, and Pete had a girlfriend also that he had cheated on with Shakira. This is so stupid. You either like their acting or you don't. What happens outside of a character they are acting should have zero bearing whether you like their movies or not, and so childish. I can't believe adults are having this conversation as if you've not done at least one shitty thing in your lives. Marilyn Manson thought the whole creepy guy routine was an act. Apparently not. Lizzo, extremely talented in so many ways, turns out to be an abusive asshole to staff, and instead of apologizing, she quits. I'm sure there are others, but I can't remember them right now. Orson Scott Card. Ender's Game was one of my favorite books of all time. Read a few more books in the series after that. Then I learned he was a raging homophobe and actively donated to anti-gay causes. I make it a point to make sure he never gets another dime from me. Tom Cruise, what an actor. What an amazing actor. But ever since learning more about Scientology, it's hard to enjoy any movie which he is in, as I just keep thinking about how his support is helping the group do some pretty awful things. He just seems creepy now. I liked Vinnie Jones and Alexander Armstrong and didn't mind Jeremy Clarkson until I found out they were pro-fox hunting. Similarly, once discovered that owners, CEO, whatever of Albert Bartlett and Warburton were fox hunters, stopped buying their products. Woody Allen, Annie Hall, Manhattan and others are extraordinary films, but I can't and won't ever watch them again. He and his actions are repulsive. Manhattan has become particularly disturbing. He cast himself as a middle-aged man dating an underage girl. Kimmy Robertson, who played an endearing character in my favorite show, Twin Peaks, she wrote a character letter in defense of Brian Peck, placing the blame for his crimes on victim Drake Bell. To see her name pop up in the documentary was a stab. Every time a restaurant plays Michael Jackson music, I want to speak to the owner in graphic detail about what he did to those bows. But I just note it and never go back to the spot. Has only happened to 3 times so far, and I was surprised each time. John Hamm, liked him and thought he nailed both drama and humor. But then I found out about the college frat hazing he did, which resulted in permanent damage to the other person, and can't see him in the same way. I'm not proud to admit I used to admire Elon Musk, which is nearly impossible for me to fathom now. But I took him as an earnest entrepreneur way back when Tesla was a startup of sorts. Former line for your lashes. The science guy. As a kid I used to scream Bill, 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 Bill whenever we watched him in class. But when I heard he was a prick, now every time I hear about him I just think about how he's a prick. One celeb, a podcaster, and a comedian, all Christians. Instant disgust came over me, and I haven't liked them since. Christianity had no place in this world anymore, and I don't tolerate any of their nonsense. John Stamos, he helped his friend rape a girl and then told it like it was a cute anecdote in Jane magazine. I was a fan of Chris D'Elia before he turned out to be into young teenage girls. I thought his comedy was really quotable and fun to use as banter with my brothers. I enjoy his podcast too. David Chung, liked his creative approach to cooking and seemed like a decently funny guy. But now he is suing anyone who uses the term chili crunch, which he claims to have invented. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, when I was a lot younger. But nowadays it doesn't take binoculars to see that the dude is an egotistical, money-hungry actor who's just using a nice guy persona. I liked Mel Gibson back in the day, when he made those awful comments about his pregnant girlfriend, and then those anti-Semitic comments on Jews. He became pure trash in my book. Joss Whedon cheated on his wife for 17 years, abused his position and power to pressure many staff and actresses to have sex with him, and treated some crew and actors terribly. James Woods, he was so good as Hades in Hercules, and I really liked the show Shark. But between his young girlfriends and his political views, I just can't be a fan anymore. This one is a complete opposite, but Schwarz was always a weird character in that one kids show I watched way back when. Turns out he was trying to save kids from Dan Schneider. Chris Pratt, I used to enjoy his films, not anymore. I can only filter out a certain amount of crappy personal foibles before I get pulled out of the experience by them. I used to love The Cosby Show. I feel bad for the other actors on that show. Any hope of residual royalties was thrown out the window due to Bill Cosby's actions. Sad. I started to listen to Marilyn Manson 2 years ago. His music vibrated with me. Then I saw the documentary Rising Phoenix, and yay, I cannot look the same at him. Jontran. I loved him as co-host on Game Grumps and loved a lot of his solo videos. Until he went completely mask off and revealed what a vile racist he is. It wasn't that I thought it was some irredeemable sin, anything. But John Mulaney's infidelity blew apart the appeal he had as a funny wife guy for me. Most of them in recent years, in light of Epstein, Diddy, etc. I have a hard time trusting any of them or being interested in any of them anymore. Ellen DeGeneres. Used to watch her show daily. Crazy how someone can preach being kind so much yet treats nearly her entire crew like garbage. Adam West. Thought he was so funny as his fictional version of himself on Family Guy, then learned firsthand upon meeting him he's a real jerk. Jordan Peterson. Until I realized how wrong he is about a lot of things. Needless to say, I was a teen when I discovered him. LOL. Ashton Kutcher. Then he wrote a character reference for Danny Masterson, and he has been by P. Diddy's side, so it came in fast. Amy Lee from the band Evanescence fired her original guitar player because he refused to sleep with her. So pathetic. Christine Ebersole. But then she became quite the sucker for pretty much every conspiracy theory known to man. I used to like Chris Brown until I found out about his history of domestic violence. Now I can't support him. Stephen Hawking. If the list is true, and if it's true, he will be the biggest shame in science community. Mark Wahlberg. I still really like a lot of his performances and movies, but the guy is undeniably a prick.